Rappers or musicians in general are some of the most popular and influential people on the face of the planet. So, naturally, with all this fame and influence comes a lot of money. While there are rappers such as Drake and Kanye West who are worth hundreds of millions of dollars respectfully, there are rappers who were once rich but soon lost everything due to actions out of their control and careless spending. In this video, we look at some famous rappers who were once rich but then lost everything and became broke. The first on the list that we'll look at is none other than T-Pain. T-Pain grew up wanting to be a rapper because it was something that excited him and he was really passionate for it. And back in 1999, T-Pain had first gained some attention after he had made a cover of one of Akon's songs called Locked Up and he named it F'd Up. This move would change his life forever because not only was the record good, but it was seen by Akon himself, and Akon loved the record so much that he wanted to sign T-Pain to his record label. It's also important to keep in mind that because of the cover and also all the other records that T-Pain was dropping at the time, there were also other record labels that were interested in signing him, with the labels such as Interscope Records offering him $900,000 and Atlantic Records who had offered him $700,000. However, at the time, T-Pain was not really in it for the money, but was instead just following his dreams. So, despite Akon's label only offering him a comparatively small $20,000, he took the deal because that meant that he could get closer to Akon and learn from him. He looked up to him and thought that being signed to Akon's own label would mean that he would act as a guidance for T-Pain and help him further his career by giving some very valuable advice. From that point, he would then dominate hip-hop and R&B during the 2000s, with songs such as Buy Your Own Drink and being featured on Flo Rida's song called Low, which both charted #1 on the Billboard Hot 200. This made him lots of money, and during his prime, T-Pain had won about 2 Grammys and was reportedly earning an estimate of over $40 million every year. However, this would be the highest sum of money that T-Pain would see, as from there he would adapt a ridiculous spending habit that would soon leave him completely broke.
Before me that I had to look up to, they were just like, no, this is great. Once you start rapping, it's just money all the time. Just nothing's ever gonna happen bad. Nothing bad's ever gonna happen. Your family's not gonna come after you. Nothing's gonna happen. It's just rap, and it's just girls and swimming pools after this.
And because of this, he would purchase an array of supercars that cost him lots of money, including a $1.1 million Rolls-Royce Phantom, a $250,000 Ferrari FPO30, a $250,000 Ferrari 458 Italia, a $400,000 Lambo, and a $1.2 million Bugatti, and the list goes on and on and on. He would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on big and expensive chains, coupled with other types of jewelry, and would also spend millions on properties and houses all over the US, plus spent further millions on houses and properties for his crew, staff, and even family members.
It was fine. I was fine, and
you bought it for $2.1 million.
$2.1 million.
And then you very shortly thereafter you found out that you were actually broke, and you sold it for all they gave you was $800,000.
Yeah.
So it was like renting a car for $1.3 million.
Yeah.
He continued these habits until his accountant would unfortunately share the news that he was out of money. And by the time 2010 had rolled around, he couldn't afford to even buy his own kids Burger King and had to unfortunately file for bankruptcy. Next up on the list is MC Hammer. In the early 90s, MC Hammer had been dominating the music world. From hustling by selling music and albums on the streets, Hammer was recognized by a major record label very early on who had offered him a staggering $1.7 million in order to sign him. And Hammer took the deal, and before ever truly reaching his peak, Hammer was already a millionaire. But this newfound form of wealth didn't go over his head, as he didn't plan on slowing down and continued making music. After dropping a few banger tracks, which helped him build a fan base of people that loved his music, Hammer would then go on to eventually drop his biggest project ever, an album named Hammer Please Don't Hurt Him, dropping in February of 1990, and since then has sold 18 million copies to this day, making it the 5th highest selling hip-hop album of all time. This album featured songs such as Have You Seen Her, Pray, and his most popular song, You Can't Touch This, which won him 2 Grammys. These songs made him an icon amongst hip-hop fans and would make him the biggest name at the time, with all 3 songs charting in the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100, with You Can't Touch This debuting at number 1. This unbelievable amount of success would earn him tens of millions of dollars. He would win dozens and dozens of awards, including become the first and only rapper at the time to have 3 of his albums be certified diamond. And a year after dropping Hammer Please Don't Hurt Him in 1990, he will go on to make $30 million in 1 year. But how did MC Hammer go broke if he was so rich and he had such a strong work ethic? Well, you see, MC Hammer had a major problem, a spending problem. At his peak, he owned 17 supercars, a private jet, 2 boats, and 2 helicopters for traveling around the Bay Area. But all those purchases fell in comparison as to how much he was spending on his residence, aka the famous MC Hammer mansion. During his peak, Hammer bought a $12 million, 40,000 square foot mansion and spent a further $30 million to renovate it. He added gold-plated front gates embezzled with his iconic catchphrase, Hammer Time. He added a bowling alley, a basketball court, a baseball field, recording studio, movie theater, a 17-car garage, a tennis court, 2 swimming pools, with one of the swimming pools being shaped with his signature parachute pants, or else known as Hammer Pants. He added several marble statues of himself around the property and installed a gold hot tub in his bedroom. And to keep everything running smoothly, he employed a staff of over 200 people on the property, which cost him a further $500,000 a month. But when Hammer was later asked about his house, he had this to say: "When I moved in here, it felt more like I was on vacation. But I've only used the marble steam room in the bathroom once, and I've probably never sat on the couch in the living room." He was spending over $30 million on a house that he wasn't even living in. He would also dabble in horse racing by buying horses that cost him an estimate of $250,000 to $1 million each. He was spending up to tens of millions of dollars every year and up to $1 million every single month. And furthermore, it began to come out that MC Hammer was facing a lot of class action lawsuits from many rappers, producers, and other people involved in the music industry, as he would sometimes use and even steal their work to produce some of his own without crediting them nor giving them compensation for their work. This was an issue for him because a lot of the work that he had quote-unquote stolen is what made him rich and popular in the first place. The songs that I had mentioned earlier, such as Have You Seen Her, Pray, and his biggest You Can't Touch This, along with Here Comes the Hammer, all either have samples that he wasn't allowed to use, or he used the beats and lyrics taken from other producers and rappers that he was not given permission from, and didn't give them a cut of the royalty once the track was released. And also around this time, MC Hammer started producing less and less music, meaning that he wasn't making the same amount of money that he had been during the peak of his career. Yet despite the lack of music he was making, he still continued to spend more and more money on his lavish lifestyle and make even bigger purchases. So with less than millions of dollars coming in and tens of millions going out, it was only a matter of time before MC Hammer had gone broke and had to file for bankruptcy in the year 1998. And that's exactly what he would do, as he was no longer able to afford the lifestyle that he had built for himself. A lot of the cars that he had bought were being repossessed by the IRS because he couldn't afford to pay them off anymore. It had even gotten so bad that the mansion that MC Hammer had bought for $12 million and spent upwards of $40 million was then resold for only $5.3 million, meaning that he had to resell his house for half the price that he originally bought it at only a sixth of the amount that he had used to renovate the home. That would prove to be the final straw for MC Hammer, and from there on he would legally be declared as broke. The next person on this list is 50 Cent. 50 Cent first burst onto the scene with multiple songs and records in the late 90s and early 2000s, and his popularity reached an all-time high after he was famously shot 9 times in the year 2000, which put 50 in the hospital for a couple of months. But after being released, he would then go on to drop his debut album Get Rich or Die Trying in 2003. The album featured songs such as 21 Questions, Pimp If I Can't, and his most popular song to date, In the Club, with 21 Questions as well as In the Club debuting at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 respectively. Get Rich or Die Trying would not only become the 10th highest selling hip-hop album of all time, but upon first release would pull in an impressive 872,000 copies in just 4 days, and would debut at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 200 chart, and was also nominated for a Grammy, which he unfortunately didn't win. But that would not shake his momentum, nor would it slow him down, as that year he will go on to sell 3 million copies globally on that album alone, drop a couple of more albums with The Massacre in 05, which sold about 4.83 million copies, as well as Curtis in 03, which debuted at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 200, only behind Kanye West's album Graduation. This brought along various different types of awards, including 13 Billboard Music Awards, 6 World Music Awards, 3 American Music Awards, plus the eventual Grammy, along with tens, potentially hundreds of millions of dollars. 50 Cent was at the top of the world. He was the king of hip-hop and nobody could touch him. However, when the music stopped bringing in the same amount of money that it once was, 50 Cent pivoted and changed his career and eventually became a businessman. He started his own record label along with his own clothing line. He had deals with multiple different companies. He invested in things such as real estate, mining, vodka, fragrances, consumer electronics and fashion, and other forms of income, all easily making him over $100 million every single year. At some point, he even took a deal with Vitamin Water, and that was his biggest deal at the time, as it had made him a lot of money that kept on coming in, because he didn't take the money up front, but he had instead gained equity from it so that he would continuously make money from it. Plus, he became the spokesperson for the brand, so he made over hundreds of millions of dollars from it. It was even reported that during his prime, 50 had made over hundreds of millions of dollars and had an estimated net worth of 150 million and made it on the yearly Forbes list for the richest rappers in the world. But in 2015, 50 Cent had unfortunately filed for bankruptcy, meaning that he was now broke and he needed some help. But why was one of the biggest and one of the richest rappers in the world filing for bankruptcy? Why and how did this happen? Well, to understand this better, we need to go all the way back to 2008. And in that year, 50 Cent began beefing with another well-known rapper, Rick Ross. This beef started because Rick Ross claimed that 50 had looked at him the wrong way at the 2008 BET Awards, and he had problems with that. While 50 claimed that he didn't see Rick, nor did he even know that he was there, Rick didn't believe him and went after him anyway. This beef got so personal that they then began releasing diss tracks on each other, and 50 was also reportedly seen walking around with Rick Ross's wife, taking her on a shopping spree by buying her various different expensive items. The feud was as personal as it could get. But what does any of this gotta do with 50 Cent going broke? Well, you see, during this time, 50 had acquired a tape between Rick Ross's baby mama and her ex-boyfriend. And he originally didn't plan on releasing the tape, but did it anyways after he was given the permission from the ex-boyfriend. And because of that tape, he was then sued in 2005 by Rick Ross's baby mama for $5 million for releasing the tape and $2 million worth of damages. The case took about 5 years to get resolved, and in the end, 50 lost, so he had to pay upwards of $7 million to Brooke. He was then successfully sued again by a major headphone company after one of their collab projects that was mostly controlled by 50 Cent had failed. Because of this, he was forced to pay them a further $17 million for the failed headphones. plus 50 Cent's record label and clothing line, along with his boxing company as well as his film company, had all fallen out of the spotlight, and they began losing money very, very quickly. And to make matters even worse, 50 still had to put aside $108,000 every month for his 18-bedroom mega mansion, while the rest of his money were going to other expenses such as his barber and stylist. And because of all the expenses that 50 had at the time, with all his cars, houses, properties, and taxes, totaling up to tens of millions of dollars, this lawsuit forced him to file for bankruptcy with a debt of over $2.5 million. At the time, this didn't make any sense, as 50 was worth 9 figures, but it didn't matter. He was legitimately and legally broke. Though he was reported broke, he continued trolling the haters as he would post pictures on social media about his lavish lifestyle and was even seen spelling out the word broke with stacks of cash. But because he had owed $2.5 million, he was then asked to appear in court in order to explain how he had this much money, because he was in so much debt. And that forced him to admit that all the posts that he had done on social media were fake, with the lawyer saying, "The cash depicted in those social media postings are not real. The postings, which amongst other things make use of stage or prop money, they are part of the debtor's routine social media marketing activities and relate directly to the debtor's various business interests. Prop money is routinely used in entertainment industry, including movies, television shows, videos, and social media postings."